Okay, March 22nd. And now it is 15 days on a trail for you. What's your trail name?
Big Rig.
How'd you get that?
Well, because basically I'm just like a semi in that I'm kind of slow going up hills and really fast going down hills unless I apply the brakes. So
You're a big boy too.
yeah,
Gravity helps,
yeah, most definitely.
but not when you're going uphill.
No.
Tell
does
me
not.
about that.
I mean, it's starting to get better, 2 weeks in, but yeah, it's definitely, especially, when I started this with y'all, I think I weighed 226. No idea how much I weigh now, less, but, trying to get that plus a 35-pound, backpack up a hill, especially when you haven't been, used to doing anything like this in Texas, definitely a chore. So working on the endurance and just getting used to it. And now I'm finally starting to kind of at least feel like I'm getting the trail legs a little bit. So we'll see.
Okay, so March 22nd, what are conditions like out here?
Conditions, honestly, have been fantastic. Now, they've been a little bit chilly because it's still, still just the very edge of winter, and because of the altitudes that we're at, it's definitely been cold in the 20s at night, and first thing in the morning, of course, it's always the coldest. So, yeah, getting out of the sleeping bag in the mornings is not fun. But once we get moving, typically within an hour or hour and a half, things kind of warm up. But I don't think we could ask for better conditions right now.
Yeah.
And I hate to jinx us, but right now we've been doing really well with rain and kind of avoiding it and stuff. And I know it's coming, but it's nice that since the temperatures have been so low that we haven't had to deal with rain as well, because of course that makes for not a winning combination.
Right. So when I started this up, this latest segment, I kind of led into it myself with mentions of concerns and obstacles maybe we'd have to overcome as we got out here. And the first one there was three, and the first one was people in terms of trail crowding. Now, it is said that the trail is going to be very crowded this year. How do you see it so far?
So far, because of I think where we started and joining up with you all at Irwin, Tennessee, versus down back at the very beginning in Georgia, I think we've fared really well because we've avoided the bubble,
Right.
Even though there were folks that started a little bit before us on the 7th, but they were still starting in Georgia. So so far so good. I think we've had some real good luck, not only with weather but also with the crowd mitigation. And being able to stay in campsites and or shelters, and for the most part having it relatively to ourselves. So that's been, I know it won't always be that way, but at least for the beginning, that's a nice kind of way to ease into it, similar to the weather. It's like it's giving us a break, chance to kind of acclimate before whatever gets thrown at us.
Yeah, good bonus. Now you got to meet some hikers though, right?
Yes.
What was that like?
It's been awesome getting to meet people from all walks of life, which I kind of figured was going to be the case. But getting to meet folks from, different locations, different occupations, socioeconomic backgrounds, everything, you get to meet folks to where this is, kind of a luxury thing that they get to do. And for others, it's, they're selling a house and home to make this happen. So everybody comes here with different ideas, expectations, and reasons why they're doing it. But it seems like there's a good camaraderie for the most part amongst everybody that's out here, regardless of their age or why they're doing it. It seems like thru-hikers are thru-hikers, and there's a bond there in that.
Right. Another concern that I kind of outlined was COVID. Tell me about your impressions about the trail and the virus.
So far with COVID, and I think honestly that depends on really the individual and how you approach, COVID and your particular stance. I mean, we've been at it now for over a year, so I think people have, from the get-go kind of entrenched themselves into one way of looking at it or the other. I had it back in June, tested positive back in June of 2020, and it wasn't fun for about 5 or 6 days, but luckily no lasting symptoms or anything else. So just taking the precautions. It's been interesting going into different trail towns and hearing. I know for sure that we've been told by a couple people that either run hostels or otherwise, no, you don't need a mask here. This town we don't wear a mask. Da da da. And not more than 10 minutes later, we go to travel to a grocery store in that town, and people are wearing masks, or into a pharmacy, and there's a sign that says please wear your mask, and so again, I that's such a hot button issue right now. I think the fact that the vaccines are rolling out the way that they are and stuff, I think it makes it safer and safer. And you're taking a risk whenever you come out onto the AT, regardless of whether or not you ever get COVID. There are a ton of other things that could potentially mess you up physically, being out on the AT, aside from potentially getting COVID. So I think that's just one of the things you have to be cognizant of.
Yeah. Tell me about training. That was the last one of the 3.
Training.
Yeah.
If I could go back, probably like a lot of people, or at least I see a lot of folks, describe it this way, but for sure, if I could go back, and even though I didn't have a lot of lead time before joining up with you and Sling, I think maybe I had 2 months to kind of prepare. Didn't even have my backpack, until a month into that. So, I basically had on a regular backpack that I just shoved stuff in. Well, of course, that doesn't simulate at all what you're doing, especially if that backpack only weighs, 15 pounds or so. That's a light base weight,
Right.
And in Central Texas, at least the place that I got to train had some ups and downs and switchbacks and stuff like that. But there's no way it prepared me in any way, shape, or form. And also the elevation, because you got to realize in Texas, it's just, the elevation is typically 1,000 or below kind of thing. Well, here, we were starting out at, 1,000 something, and then going up rapidly. Within those first 4 days, I think we started off at, somewhere around 1,800 or so, and wound up, a little above 6,200.
Right.
That was tough. That was real tough. And I think I would say to anybody out there, as far as training, try to do it as long as you can leading up to your thru-hike, and certainly don't expect that you can, within a month or 2, be adequately prepared, unless you just go full, Rocky montage mode and, spend an entire month doing nothing day and night, but, getting on a Stairmaster with a 35-pound, backpack on and going for hours. Because truly, that's what was shocking to me, was getting out there and seeing a hill, and it just kept going and going and going and going up and up and up.
Do you have any tricks about getting to the top that you do inside your own head to maybe not look at the top, or?
That's interesting. It truly, it seems to vary, honestly, at this point. Now, I know it's only been 15 days, but it still varies from day to day. There are times where, I think like any of us, sometimes you got a little bit more pep in your step, whether you just ate or you seem to have finally woken up kind of thing, and okay, sun maybe peeked out a little bit, and your fingers aren't frozen to your sticks kind of thing as you're walking, and so you kind of have a little bit more pep in your step going up, and that's certainly a positive motivator, versus some of those mornings where we've started out and it's been just freezing, and the first thing coming out of our campsite or shelter is straight up. And then it's just, sometimes you just have to, as they say in the Army and elsewhere, embrace the suck, and you just gotta one foot in front of the other. And I think it was you that taught me, within the first couple of days, like going up those hills, if it gets real steep, just kind of shorten those steps, a little choppy. And so sometimes I'll just sit there and just chop, 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 and just kind of keep focused forward and try not to look up too much. And because that can certainly suck the life out of you if you've already getting exhausted and you look up and realize, oh, I've only done about a third of this.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's the false summits. That
Right.
I think I'm there.
You think you're done.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
You
It's
aren't
hard on your head.
Yeah.
So, how about injuries? Want to talk about any kind of problems you've had?
Injuries.
That's optional.
No, no, absolutely no. Injuries. I mean, they're going to happen, and unless you're Tin Man, and Tin Man doesn't get injuries like the rest of us. But no, it's unexpected. Some of it you can anticipate because most people, all you have to do is watch YouTube or go on blogs or vlogs and see that for most folks, your knees are going to hurt. For a while. I'm hoping that by the time we hit 200 to 300 miles into the current journey that my knees will kind of be a little bit more acclimated to it. But yeah, that's going to hurt because how can it not? You're putting, especially if you haven't been training for tons of miles a day, now all of a sudden you've taken your own weight, put 35 pounds on your back, and you're expecting your knees and your joints and tendons and ligaments to go up hills each and every day for many miles, many days in a row. So yeah, it's going to happen. My knees definitely have bothered me. Got some really, lovely thumb-sized blisters right on the balls of my feet about a week ago, and wound up basically being lucky, fortunate that I was able to take a couple 0 days to let that heal, and y'all helping me out to get that. So it's it's going to happen, and I think if you just kind of go with that notion of something's going to hurt, I'm probably going to tweak this, I'm probably going to twist that, or whatever, but I think eventually, as long as you're not pushing it or being silly about it, that it'll heal up in due time, and your body's just going to adapt and become stronger.
Yeah, good. Let's see, March 22nd. And that's Big Rig. Oh, last, let me ask you, you've linked up here with Sling. Tell me about your background and how you got to know each other in the first place.
I'm retired U.S. Army, and that's where I met Sling, aka Marty, and we deployed together back in 2004, 2005 during both of our first deployments to the Middle East. So got to know him real well there, and you develop that camaraderie, that brotherhood, and we've just stayed in touch ever since. And last year, when you all first started the journey, he had not emailed, he had sent me a Christmas card saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this. You want to come with me?" And of course, it was just such, for me anyway, it was such short notice. I was like, oh, I'd love to, but I think he was starting in February, and it wasn't going to pan out. Little did we know that's when COVID happened not long afterwards, and so everything kind of changed. Well, he sent me another Christmas card this year, or this past Christmas, said, "Hey, going back out on the trail," and so I immediately got in touch with him and said, "You got room for one more?" He's like, "Yeah." So so I'm very fortunate to be able to do something like that, especially such short notice, and to have the hospitality and the knowledge of both y'all in helping me to hopefully get up to Katahdin and turn right back around and march from Irwin to Springer.
Okay, that's great. Welcome aboard. Let's go to Katahdin.
Yeah, thanks.
You bet.